The debate about Common Core heated up today with apparent protest outside the Nevada legislature. John Eppolito, a parent from Incline Village, has been raising questions about Common Core for almost 2 years.
Well, we're going to have a hearing, AB303, which is the Stop Common Core bill. That's where we are today.
Is that the only bill, basically, that it would do anything about Common Core?
There is one that I believe it's SB 228. I know Don Gustafson is the sponsor that deals with the data collection, which is the most problematic issue.
I was going to say, talk about the data collection and the computer robotic testing a little bit.
The data collection is the federal government has spent over $612 million to ensure that 46 states all have the exact same databases. The suggested data points are over 400 to collect on children from preschool to the workforce. It's a longitudinal database. We've never had this in the United States. It's very problematic. There's a lot of personal data in there, and it's supposed to be collected in 46 states. We're not done. Nevada's only halfway to completing it, so we'll see what happens.
You've been at the center of the Common Core debate now for over a year on that. And what has been the response from teachers in the state of Nevada?
That's a good question. What we've noticed is the teachers who support it are encouraged to speak up, and there'll probably be some here this afternoon. And the teachers who don't like it are either retiring, encouraged not to speak up, or just not doing a whole lot because they're afraid partly for their jobs and partly for the tension in the buildings.
Assembly Bill 303 was heard in the Assembly Education Committee, which would repeal most of the law regarding Common Core in the state of Nevada.
And as a community, about education not only shapes who we are, but also determines our survival as the greatest country in the world that has ever been known. And we need to make sure we know what we're doing. I introduced AB 303 for that very reason. I'm asking that together we examine the reality of Common Core. We have new information that we did not have when we, like 45 other states, signed on to implement Common Core. We owe it to Nevadans, we owe it to our families, and we owe it to our children that we take a close look at this Common Core. Devil's in the detail. And once people actually understand what it is, they're very frustrated and upset with it. It's growing not just as a Republican issue or as a Democratic issue, but it's as a parent issue who cares about their children. And if you actually look next, there's bipartisan support for this. The Republican National Party has put in its platform that Common Core is not, that they're against Common Core, and that again is on Nellis too with the Republican Party, as well as the Clark County Democratic Party. They've put in their platform that they're as well against Common Core. So this transition goes beyond just Republican or Democrat. Again, it's about parents and who care for their children. Okay, now it's been over 6 years, a little over 6 years since we started with Common Core, and there are many, many organizations which are coming out against Common Core. Truth in American Education, Homeschool Legal Defense Association, the Heritage Foundation, our own NPRI, and you can see here, and many grassroots efforts are coming out against Common Core. People are mobilizing, people are getting upset, and people are when I say people, parents mostly, they're demanding that we get rid of Common Core. In Oklahoma alone, I think 1,100 people showed up to get at the doorsteps because they said, we can't do this to our children. And I have here just samples of the data mining, but the actual implementation of the data mining is pages and pages of information that now the school system is being required to keep of our children. The claim is it goes from cradle to the grave. And this is information that's going to be used to determine if your children are eligible for college or other programs. And it's quite extensive, from everything from if your child's not at risk from a young age, to parents that have firearms, to is there fighting going on, to what kind of medications you're on. It's just super extensive. So many people are getting worried about the big brother effect of the government knowing everything about your children and you in the family life. Proprietary and unproven testing. This SBAC that is proprietary and we have to use it, and it is not proven to be successful. It hasn't been validated as being effective. And I put a little cartoon here, And it's almost a joke that not only is it unproven, but we're being forced to have to buy it. And just as a funding mechanism, it's estimated it's $33 per student, and that'll be over $15 million every 2 years just to pay for the testing.
So many of them are unfortunately not true. And I've heard the very same things across the country. I've heard them in many different states, and unfortunately, I think it's leading to some misconceptions, and I hope that you all as policymakers will ultimately have the full picture. So.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Allred. I might be able to address some of that. When I get to my presentation, it might also make it clear to you. There are often districts that set up pacing guides and even so much as weekly guides the teachers set up themselves as to when things are going to be taught in order so they can cover everything that they need to get through. It is not prescribed how to teach it or when to teach it. That is a district decision. I am a principal in a district here in the state, and we do have pacing guides. You have to be prepared for the testing because ultimately testing is kind of what proves if you're doing your job or not, and that's how teachers feel. But with anything that's new, it's very stressful, anxiety-ridden, because they are trying to make sure they're doing the best job they can do. And Common Core has been difficult to get resources for right away. They're coming now, and the districts and the teachers are developing them. So what a lot of people went to was, we're all going to do this together so we can go down in a ball of flames or up in a blaze of glory together, so that we know what we're doing and that we're covering what we need to cover, because it's so new to the teachers. And for many teachers, it's a shift in the paradigm of the way they teach.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point. I'm looking for 5 years, 10 years, 15. There must be a
We're going to
plan.
move on, Mr. Edwards. I don't think he knows the number of years or whatever.
For the record, my name is John Ippolito. I'm a father of 4 children in the system, and I'm a former teacher. Massachusetts standards, just to clarify some things, especially that Mr. Brickman said. After 3 years of using Common Core, Massachusetts reading scores fell more than any other state in the country. Their 4th grade reading proficiency, that's what's starting to happen with Common Core. In California, Common Core math, it was very problematic for the math that was in the mid-90s. And in California, Dr. Milgram has research to show that after 4 years of Common Core math, most kids don't recover. My daughter, who was in 3rd grade last year, her teacher showed me that she knew how to subtract using the regular method, and she was so excited that she got to teach my daughter 3 more ways to subtract. What she left off is, well, she's learning 3 other ways to subtract. She could have been doing something much more in-depth. Fordham also took at least $8 million from Bill Gates to support Common Core. I believe Mr. Brickman left that out too. Brookings Institute took nothing, and they said Common Core will do little, if anything, to improve education in the United States. We're going to spend billions of dollars, but it's not going to do anything. Gates is also evaluating the curriculum. There's a formal method now to evaluate curriculum, not to say if it's good, only if it follows Common Core. It doesn't matter if it's good. Informational text, that was another misstatement. Dr. Stotsky emailed me during the testimony. At every grade level, what Dr. Stotsky wrote was, quote, there are 10 reading standards at every grade level for informational text and 9 reading standards at every grade level for literature. She simply says 50% informational text. As a parent, someone said something about parents being frustrated. I think it was Fordham. I was not frustrated with my children's school until Common Core came along. I just want to say 2 more things. Yesterday, here's 2 things that happened just
10
yesterday.
seconds.
The American Federation of Teachers, the 2nd largest teachers union in the country, said she supported parents who opt out of Common Core testing, and the president of the largest teachers union in New York State suggested parents opt their children out of Common Core testing. We don't have that option in Nevada, and the reason is...
Thank you, Mr. Ippolito. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am, you're welcome.
That test
what you haven't taught by law in the state of Nevada. If your graduation requirements don't include calculus, algebra, etc., then you need to include them in your graduation requirements. Our kids have been undereducated for a long time, and it's by the cheap design. To quote a friend of mine, Repeal, stack them deep and teach them cheap. What we need in this state, you've got a bond issue or issues to help build and repair schools. Make sure those schools include laboratories. They include your language labs. They include your choir rooms, your PE rooms. And do not have a different description for classes, either college bound or other bound, and give one a higher quality mark. All classes taught by teachers in this state for our kids should be world-class classes. And they shouldn't be, well, that's a home ec class or that's an art class. We have careers that are based on the classes we're teaching, or we wouldn't have taught them in the first place. I taught at the boys' school in Elko. We had kids leave that school who could be master meat cutters. We had kids who could be master landscapers. Teach to the quality. What you need here and now is in all these standards. They all miss the boat because they don't do the final component. They don't have hands-on application because those are expensive classrooms. I don't care if you're teaching a kindergartner how to do the math. If you want to set it up and show the direction and the breakdown like that last problem did, that was easy to understand if you really want to discover what it was doing. Our kids in our age didn't know when their batteries were running low on the calculators because they didn't know what the mathematic problem really consumed.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.
And I have to say, as a policymaker, I'm a little bit ashamed that we didn't really go into the Common Core when we were presented with it years ago. I think that one of the criticisms I have of the Common Core is it limits local control of the educational system. I know that some people would say no, it actually increases, but one of the things that we'll see, and we keep seeing here as policymakers, time and time again, people will come to us and say, well, I'd like to do this, or why don't we have more cursive in school? Why don't we have more classes like with ethnic studies? And again, time and time again, I have to tell them we can't, even if there's a need, if you think there's a need at the local level, we can't really fit that in because the Common Core has that testing regimen that goes along with it, and with that testing regimen, teachers are tied to that test. They really want to make sure the kids get that test. So there's just, as a policymaker, I'm kind of worried about how this rolled out. I understand where we're at. I think going forward, we're going to end up keeping the standards.
The teacher is the key. I mean, they see those kids every day for 180 days, and they're in the best position to judge just what is best for them and how they will perform. And then that teacher sets the environment and the atmosphere to make learning or conducive to learning within that classroom. I think the most important part of this entire equation is the teacher.
The 3-hour hearing on AB303 ended with no action being taken on the bill. At the Nevada Legislature, I'm Theresa Catalani for the Stealth Reporter.